Hello, hello, hello. As we promised, there's gonna be a part 2 of the story that we were covering last week. I mean, this is one of those stories you just want to save. You want to save to put it in your downloads on YouTube or whatever thing you have to do. But this is a story that even I would want to go back to. We have an amazing interview. We have an amazing session for you today, a continuation of what we had last week. And of course, I told you guys about my guest, who is Athanas Mbele. And of course, we have had an amazing, amazing story, from whatever he was sharing with us. And I mean, it's just a whole testimony. It's a whole journey. And I'm really, really curious to just know how it ends, how it continues to unfold and all that. And I know you two are also excited. But welcome to the show. My name is Beatrice Watare, sitting in for Sharon. And of course, excited once again to be doing the part 2 of what we began. We left it off at a very amazing point, and maybe for those who are just looking at us right now and you're like, okay, nikina nani wanaongelea part 2 na mimi hata sijui part 1 iko wapi, just go on YouTube. You're going to get the part 1 of this particular interview, and then you can come back or just save it or listen to this and then you'll connect it. The brain can also do its thing. You can as well connect it. But this is the one interview that I believe is going to transform your life and also help you to see life from a different perspective. And not just life, but also even God from a whole different perspective, his sovereignty, because that's exactly what we were talking about off air. But welcome once again. So just a brief introduction for those who are maybe watching you for the first time.
Thank you, Beatrice. My name is Athanas Mbele.
Yeah.
I am a banker, an entrepreneur, a farmer, and a philanthropist.
Yeah.
More importantly, I am a father and a husband of one wife. And also, I'm born again. Yeah, and an author of The Perfect Storm. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. And we closed off last week's interview with talking about the story of Jesus sleeping in the middle of a storm. Maybe we can do a recap of that and how it relates to your life.
Yeah. I think the story of Jesus first inviting the disciples into the storm, into a journey, shows that, number one, the journey of facing storms is for those who have been invited to walk with Jesus.
Wow.
So when you walk with Jesus, doesn't mean that you are immune to storms of life. So Jesus has set to sail to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So they had a mission and a destination.
Yeah.
Just like anybody in life. But little did they know, towards the journey to the other side, there are storms.
Yeah.
So storms may not come to you. If you don't have storms in life, then it means you are not in any journey. You are not sailing.
That's true.
And it might also mean you're not actually in the journey with Jesus. Because he invites us to a journey of what his life demonstrated. Crucifixion, betrayal, pain. Jesus wept to a point that the tears were seen as blood. In fact, it was so tough that it reached a point that he said, if this cup can be taken away from me, then it's better. So that journey of storm is a realization I got after the kidney failure. And I think my story of losing the kidney was part of the grand, large story of sailing towards a destination. And I mean, the storms are for the lucky ones. The ones that have been invited by God to sail together with. But then Jesus asks a very important point when they said, who is this that has calmed the storm? Meaning, number one, the storms make you realize who you are with.
Yeah.
But he asks them, where is your faith? A very important tool that you need to face off the journey. Faith is a tool that is used by both Christians and non-Christians. So, but as Christians, we've been used to praying off the storms,
Yeah.
rebuking God. And sometimes it's even funny that sometimes we actually blame the devil for the storms sometimes. And if you look at Isaiah, there is a part that says that God himself brings challenges in our lives at times. I know there's also the devil seeking permission in the case of Job, but I also believe that in the crucible of God forming you,
Yeah.
then he has to pass you through some of these storms. So mine came as I was ushered into a dialysis session. And I was telling you that I saw the machine, which looks like an ATM machine, the size of an ATM machine. And I was pierced just below the collarbone and inserted some pipes that are the size of a biro pen, right through the heart to the artery, where the blood will now be taken out to the machine and cleaned up and then returned back for 4 hours. And at that time, the body responds as if you've gotten an accident. The body doesn't know you're in dialysis. So when the blood is removed like that, the heart is beating so fast. And there are people who would... I remember there's a time I just collapsed on the floor. And all those pipes went out and I was losing a lot of blood and it became an emergency. But all through those 4 hours, the machine will only clean 20% of what your kidney would do. And you'd pay 14,000. And you'll do those sessions 3 times. And remember, I've just gotten a new job. So I am afraid of telling my boss that I'm doing dialysis. So I told him, I have a challenge, but I'll overcome. I was afraid of losing the job, like others in dialysis have done. But then, throughout the 4 hours, I developed a mechanism of keeping my mind sane from being swallowed up by the disease.
Yeah.
And by the time I got this news that my kidneys have failed, there's a friend of mine, a doctor, who played a very important part. He took me to the cancer center. And I can never forget this. I've even written it in my book. Then he gives me a tour in the cancer center. And then I remember asking him, why are the windows not having the curtains? Why are they made this way? He was giving me so much stories that sometimes these patients would want to jump out. And he told me, Mbele, I've brought you here not for you to compare one disease to another, but to know that cancer is not the most deadly disease. People die first in their mind. So you have to protect your mind from getting sick.
Wow.
And even when Steve Jobs was giving a speech in Stanford, and he gave us a famous quote saying that he gave a famous quote where he said that he understands now the value of being alive by being threatened with death because he was diagnosed with cancer. And he says that it's the most important thing that happened in his life to make sure that he stays focused. And I also put a quote there saying that I realized the value of a single day by being threatened of not having another.
Powerful.
Because at that time when I was in the dialysis machine, I asked myself, what if God was charging us for the kidneys that are I was doing 3 sessions in a week, being forced to eat food that is tasteless. No salt, no milk, no potatoes, no meat. So my favorite food was just ugali and cabbage, boiled cabbage without salt.
Whoa, oh my
You are
goodness.
forced to have a discipline of waking up early in the morning and queue for a dialysis machine. Your body starts craving for it because the toxics fill the body and you want the machine to wipe out your blood so fast and feel better.
Yeah.
You can't stand properly. Most of the guys in that place were in wheelchairs. You're basically a dead person being supported by a machine. And that machine is only doing 20% of the work that the kidney is doing. But the realization that most of these organs that I mentioned are either made in pairs by God, or you can live without, or they can be replicated. Like, for example, the liver, if it's destroyed and I do a transplant, I give you a piece of my liver and it grows to the full size within 21 days. That's God's plan of the body, the human body. And that brought me to the realization of the architectural mind of creation of God. Because even when I was now moving into transplant, the doctors would show me how my blood vessels have been made, which blood vessel they will tap and put a kidney. And as much as doctors are doing their job, you'd realize that there's somebody else who intricately crafted the human body. In fact, I even realized that the human body was made to survive the worst accident. That once you get an accident, God forbid, the coding that God has put in your body to just withhold crisis. And when a human body succumbs to death, it has tried.
It has done its best.
It has done its best because God has created, including some things called bypass of blood vessels.
Wow.
where if your leg is amputated, their blood vessels know how they will reconnect back to the heart. So all those things were lessons I was learning during dialysis and 4 hours of studying deep through the word. And of course, a lot of trauma. People spreading rumor that this guy is now done, is dead. Relatives turning against you, friends turning against you. And it's as much as you're being tested, they're also being tested.
Yeah.
The friendships are being stretched.
That's true.
For you to know. And sometimes you're totally isolated. And understanding that God isolates you so that you fully depend on him.
Yeah.
But more importantly, at that time, what made me survive that was that trip to the cancer center, being told to keep my mind healthy. Started studying about so many people, the Nelson Mandelas that we celebrate. He was imprisoned for 27 years. And yet we celebrate him as a hero. But during that 27 years, if you are to imagine being put in an island without food, there was a time that he was so sick. Made him to who he is. Because when he came out, his first act as president was to forgive all those who persecuted him for 27 years. And so many other people, even the Michael Jordans, have failed several times. In fact, he was called a famous failure. He failed so many times until he learned how to do the shot the right way. And he became one of the most famous and the greatest basketball player.
Yeah.
So that failure part, we fail to see it. And really has to do with the mental strength that one has. In fact, there's one person who is called Steve Hawkins, who got disability, and I've talked about his story in my book. And at the age of 22 years, he gets ALS that cripples his body. ALS is where the body is fighting its own immune system is So you lose mobility, you lose your brain proper functions, the organs fail. But he kept his mind sane. And there's a quote that he says that you can't be disabled in your body and be disabled in your mind at the same time. He says that you have to keep your mind from getting disabled.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was eating food in my mind, and the food of mind is reading the right books, listening to the right people, blocking the people you need to, avoid Googling some things that probably were not the right food.
Yeah.
Because I would Google and see that kidney failure is a path to death. You talk to somebody and they'll give you a story of how many people who have died from your disease. They will tell me, your grandfather died from the disease. The people created theories of what happened to me. Doctors, I would go to doctors, they'll give you a theory of what happened. A young man at 27, he has a kidney failure. There are those who will say it's witchcraft. I reached a point I wanted healing so fast. So I started moving to churches looking for healing miracles. So I'd get a call from friends, some genuine, some not. He'll tell you, there's this preacher, when he prays for you, you'll get a new kidney. And I've talked about my faith encounter, the journey, and the desperation to get a solution would drive you to do crazy things. You drink the waters that are supposed to do, you will sweep with the brooms that are needed just to ensure that you get well. And as a man looking at my wife going through all that, and a young family, about to lose the breadwinner, was making me more desperate for solutions. But one thing that I said I will not do is to look for alternatives outside God. There was pressure, of course, from everybody in the family.
Yes.
They'll tell you, this an old man in Tanzania, if you go, they will sort your problem out. But one thing I told God is that I'd rather die in Christ. I'd rather die in Christ, but let me see how the power of Christ is. It's not that I was testing God. I just wanted to see whether if I stick to the godly way, I'll be a failure. I'll have a failed story. And I've entailed the whole journey there. But that, now I started, after desperately looking for healing in everywhere, I started looking for a kidney donor. I got a few people that I thought were close to me, and you'll ask them and they will tell you, no, my kidney.
tricky son.
You'll tell them, you don't need the 2 kidneys, you just need 1.
Oh my God.
That's when I understood the saying that says, why are you looking at me as if I'm asking you for a kidney?
You were literally living in it.
Yeah,
looking at people like,
I'm looking at the financial part of it.
Yeah.
I did the approximations. I needed around 4 million shillings.
Oof.
So either get a kidney donor or succumb to dialysis all the time. And the dialysis just is you're not eating nutritious foods. So you have no nutrition, your body is weak.
Yeah.
And then we were losing a few patients, maybe they have underlying diseases. So you'll ask, where was my neighbor in the dialysis machine? And they will tell you, we buried her last weekend. So you're asking, am I next?
Okay. Well.
And then people are refusing to donate. When you're okay and you had the money, you thought everybody loves you, but the true love is tested at that time. And just to understand God's doing, my mom says, my biological mom says, if the doctors allow with my age, I'm always ready to give you a kidney.
Wow. Your mom now, the
Yes.
biological mom.
My biological mom.
Wow.
And that was the ultimate show of love, you know.
Oof.
First, as much as I didn't grow up with her,
Yeah.
but she was used, she selflessly gave part of her body to give me another second chance in life. So as I'm talking here, I'm carrying her kidney.
Oh, wow. I
You
mean,
know, so she gave sacrifice twice. Carried me for 9 months. That's a lot of sacrifice. And then now she gives you a kidney again.
kidney.
A mom that had grown to know that she doesn't love me.
The
Is a bit
people were
bitter.
saying that.
Yeah, and it brought me to realization that the love of a mother to a child or a debt to a mother to a child cannot be repaid. You cannot never say that will repay your mother anything. Of course, we were in talking terms, love was there, but I still doubted whether the love was 100%. But the act that she did first humbled me and brought me to a realization that I really need to ask for forgiveness.
Now it's the other way around.
For every thought I ever had and thought against her. And really, it's easy to judge women and mothers.
Very
You wouldn't know her personal storm that she went through when she had me at that time.
Yeah.
And now she gets another storm that she's about to lose me, and she offers to save the child. So we go through the process of looking for the matching tests and booking for where the transplant will be done. And my friends come and say, you know, Mbele, people come together and raise money for wedding, for schools, and sometimes even birthday. But now you have a problem, and as friends, we want to raise money. And so they raised half the budget that was needed for the transplant. And I'm very grateful for what they did. But then during that season, we had also a personal fight at home. We were looking for another child. Because I was thinking that, you know, I have very little time left to live. So I need to leave an offspring. I can't live. I need to sire more kids. But the doctors wouldn't tell me that it's hard to get a child when you're in dialysis.
Oh my.
So we could try. My wife would, as I'm busy struggling with the kidney, she's busy trying to see the fertility options available to get a baby.
Yeah.
And we didn't know who the problem was, me or her. I thought it was her. You know? And so I think the doctors didn't want to discourage me further.
Yeah.
So we kept trying. And of course, one thing I never succumbed to is to ensure that I hide my scars in my suit and always button up and go back to work after dialysis. So I'll do dialysis at 3 in the morning, wake up as I had been promoted to the head of SME, in charge of the SME department in our branches. And I'd still go to work, but I had very supportive workmates. Because if I was working for a bad organization, I would have been fired. But they held me. They were the biggest contributors to my cost of transplant. And I had a lot of moral support.
Yeah.
But the biggest one was from my wife, who, even when she cried, she made sure that I never saw it. You know?
Wow.
And so we go through the transplant process. And in March 2023, date 2, I am ushered into Nairobi Hospital theater for 8 hours. The doctors are stitching together vein after vein. And now when they put together the kidney, I was actually told that they leave the rest to God. You know, when they close up the kidney is put just right in the stomach.
Yeah.
Just at the intestines. So they tap a blood vessel, put the kidney. But then when they close, they never open up to check. It's like when you take a seed and you bury it on the soil. You can't keep digging it and checking whether it's growing. So that's what they do. So they leave the wounds inside and everything to God. But there's a prayer that I made and told God that if you give me just one day to live. There's a time I was writing my will to just the little things that were left. I called a friend of mine called Sam, told him, there are a few things I had invested on. So I think I've reached the end.
Why?
With all the faith I had, the proclamation, but I reached a place where, like just like Jesus, where he felt this cup is too much and I'm leaving. But I told God, if you give me a chance to live again, I will live a more quality life. Not the length of it, but the quality of it. And I was brought to the verse in Luke, in Luke, that speaks about love. There's a verse that talks about, there's a centurion, a very well-versed person who asks Jesus, what will they do to get to heaven? Think Luke 16.
Yeah.
And he says that love God, your Lord, from all your heart, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that guy realizes that I love God, but now I also love my neighbor. So he asks Jesus, who is the neighbor? He just wants to know. And then Jesus gives the story of a Samaritan. He says that there's a guy who was passing by and he met a Samaritan who is a stranger, and he wants to know, he wants to demonstrate, Jesus through that parable wants to demonstrate that the Samaritan had all reasons not to help, but he demonstrated love.
Yeah.
And then he says, go and do that. Meaning, after you love God, the next thing is to love his creation.
Yeah.
And a pure love that comes from the heart.
Yeah.
And how better to do it than to go back to Matthew 25, where he says, when the Son of Man rises with the angels and is seated in the throne, he tells the believers, he separates sheep and the goats.
Yeah.
And the sheep go to the right. And then he turns to the ones that are in the right. And he tells them that when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. Come and inherit my kingdom. And they ask, when did we do this, Jesus? And those are believers.
Yeah.
And he tells them, when you did it to the least in my kingdom, you actually did it to me. So at that time, I realized the importance and the demonstration of love throughout Jesus' life and his parables. All of them demonstrate great love. So I decided to start a foundation now.
Yeah.
Just at the time when I was almost being ushered to the theater. So when I was being ushered to the theater, I registered a foundation, Athanas Mbele Foundation. I had some little money. Then I bought tents for my village. I said, if there will be funerals and everything, let them be using these tents and chairs for free.
Yeah.
And one of my friends asked me, why are you doing it? And if you don't wake up? I knew if they don't wake up, at least this will be left. I had money, cars, and all that. They are gone. But what will be left is the love that you give to the people. So I asked God that to give me time, and so that I live a quality life, not to earn, but for lack of a better word, to earn my next day with how I live today.
Wow, that's really powerful. I'm being told we need to go on a break. I mean, it's 30 minutes. Zimeisha hivyo too. I can't believe. But anyway, let us take a short break and then we'll pick it up from there. I'm fearing we may need a part 3, but anyway, we will try to condense the story in the next half. So please do stay with us.
Namaste Ji. Have you ever heard of Asians that have come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ as their personal savior? On the Testify show every Thursday, we have a special segment on the third Thursday of every month known as the Asian Testify.
You can't go ahead doing wrong, but you pursue the truth and trust of God, and He will make the ways for you.
I asked myself, what would happen if I give my life to you now, in my 18s, and how much further would you carry me as a result?
Join me, Nigel Casimiro de Mello, as we listen to amazing and inspiring testimonies from Asian brothers and sisters that are in the Lord. Only here on Hope TV, where you look and live.
Welcome back. An amazing story we are having, and of course we would love to hear from you if this story is inspiring you. Remember to go live pale YouTube as well, so the video is also on YouTube, so definitely you can share it with a friend, with anyone who you feel will benefit from this conversation. So let us pick it up from where we left.
Yeah, thank you. I think what now happened after the transplant, God gave me another chance, which I call in my book the second phase of life.
Yeah.
And remember, all these things happen to create a new person. Just like I talk about the story of the phoenix in my book, where not just the phoenix, but even the seed has to rot first, die first, then comes afresh.
Yeah.
And allow me to go to that story of the phoenix as we finish the story. And I tell the viewers to please buy the book. It's available in Nuria bookstore. Because I started the book with the story of a phoenix. Is a mythical bird that scholars have written about it. Greek scholars, Egyptians. And I was reading so many versions of that bird. People say the bird rises from the ashes and you see a new bird. It was very beautiful. It had blue, yellow, gold, purple colors, feathers. It was huge. And then it had good melodies. It used to sing nicely, according to the scripts that are there. But I looked at one that has been written by a Greek philosopher who studied the bird in Egypt, the northeast part of Cairo. There was a city that was called Sun City. Right now, I think it is called Heliopolis. That bird used to stay there. And I like his version because when that bird grows old, it lays only one egg. So when it's about to go to another phase of life, it gathers the herbs and some sticks and builds up a nest in the Sun City. And it was called a Sun City because it was scorching hot. And then lays one egg, lays on that egg for a long time. And that heat builds up. And when the egg is about to hatch, it can't hatch before the sun does its thing. The herbs starts smoking. The bird is just sitting there and holding on to its egg. Probably with the realization that my time is done. Just like any human being, we have our time, we stay, we play our role, and we give the baton to the next generation.
Yeah.
So the bird sits on that nest, the herbs get hot and they burn. So they see a big flame. What scholars saw was big flame, and so the bird wails and sings very nice melody. But while that happens and the ashes lie down after the fire, you see a new bird raising up of the ashes. Beautiful, singing nice melodies.
Wow.
fresh and young than the other one. So many people thought that this bird will consume itself and rise again, but I like this other version because that bird actually dies. And what comes out is from the egg, a new bird is hatched out
Yeah.
and raises out of the flames. And that happens even with the eagle. When it has lived up to the age of 60, for it to make to the 100th year, it also goes to a process of rebirth.
Yeah.
And if you go to the story of also Jesus, he demonstrates it by going under and raising up again. So even the precious metals and that we like gold, goes through fire and they come out very refined.
Yes.
So I think I was in a process of being in a crucible of being refined. And when I came out, God developed in me something called grace. You know, grace is given by God, but I feel like for you to achieve destiny, you have to also be graceful. You know, I went through a lot of hurt that I would easily come out revengeful.
Yes.
But after transplant, I called everybody who had hurt me. I brought people more closer. I showed more love. I used every little money that I earned to do projects back home. I would find houses that have been brought down by the heavy rainfall and floods and build new houses. I would find roads that are impassable and put a maram. I'd find people who are stuck with some bills, our school fees, and pay together with my friends. Now, I no longer called friends to do tenders with them. I called them to tell them the problems that I'm seeing, that are happening. I wanted my life to become now a testimony to help others who are in crisis, in loss, in disease, divorce, business loss, any type of loss, and tell them that this is a season of preparation. So I was just going through seasons. But then something happened miraculously that 2 months after I got out of transplant, my wife got pregnant.
Wow.
After looking for a child for a long time.
Yeah.
And so a new beginning, a new me, I decided to name the child Genesis.
Ooh. Okay, I've never heard that before.
And I said, this is a new beginning.
Yeah.
And we were so happy. And this child came first because I was somehow doubting myself how long I will stay alive again with a new kidney. So let me do this first. And you know, at that time, the doctors are now told me now that we have transplanted you, let the babies come. So I knew, oh, kumbe, when I was in dialysis, I couldn't get kids. Now I can. So we bonded with the kid. Everybody was happy in my family. And then God started returning the things that I lost before. The cows started coming back.
Wow.
The jobs started, the bank account also started growing a little bit. And the more I gave, the more I was building. The more I did things under my foundation, Athanas Mbele Foundation. I would give sanitary towels to girls in school because I realized in our village we are building a circle of poverty every time by denying girls the basic things that they need, and somebody else will provide them. And they leads to early pregnancy, breeds another generation of poverty. So the little that I could do, I would do with my salary, with the little income I make here and there, and God will multiply.
Wow.
But then when the pregnancy was okay, normal, and we were gladly waiting for baby Genesis to come. And so labor pains start, and we rush my wife to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we call the doctor, we tell them, we have seen contractions have started, we are measuring them nicely, we reach the hospital. And this was this year now. Yes.
Wow.
We are talking about the month of February precisely 26th this year. And so we reach the hospital and they check the baby has no heartbeat. And the baby has been kicking the previous night. And so, I start panicking, calling the doctor. They go and scan, they realize the baby is normal. So I'm told now the baby that we thought was our gift, God has taken the baby now to heaven.
Wow.
And so we are dealing with another storm of loss. Now I am wondering, now this one is big. I can't handle this. And for a moment I couldn't think straight, but I thought I need to be strong. My wife is the most affected. She's, of course, I also bonded with the baby. So I'm reminded of a story in the Bible of first Hannah, who after looking for a baby for a long time, she decides to recalibrate her reason of having the child, not because Penina was mocking her, but she says, I want this child to serve you, to be yours. And God gives the child. And I would relate with the pain of her releasing a child at that time. So I had to go through a process called release. I had gone through all these things. I had learned how to forgive, to be graceful, to give, to love, genuinely from my heart. But I needed to learn something called release. So I go and learn about Isaac and Abraham's story. Abraham gets a child of promise, a gift, the way he got a gift. And God tells him that you have to now take this gift to the mountain.
Yeah.
And we cry about getting the blessings of Abraham, but we are not ready to carry Isaac to the mountain.
Oof. That's word right there.
So I realized that the man wakes up in the morning and he was 100 years. Isaac was 30. So Isaac could have run away or beat the... he would have beat the man and run away, But he carried the wood, the firewood, as a strong person. And he saw his father carrying the fire and a knife. But there is no sacrifice. He even asked his father, we have the wood, we have the fire, but there is no sacrifice. But Abraham says, God will provide for himself the sacrifice. So he reaches there, and there's a lot of relation with the Jesus story, because Isaac allows an old man to tie him up and ready to sacrifice his own son. So he raises a knife. Then I ask myself, how can you raise a knife to a child of promise? You must have released.
You must have released. Yeah.
For Abraham to have raised that knife, he counted Isaac dead. But he had so much faith that God will provide for himself. The Bible says he turns his eyes. First, before he could stab the child, God says, interrupts. He realizes that Abraham will do this thing if I don't stop him. He's serious.
Yeah.
So he says, he tells him, now I know that you love me.
Yeah.
So the real test of release and that calmness in storm is a demonstration of love to God. And then the Bible says he turns his focus now from the sun and he looks up and he sees a lamb being caught in the thorns. So I decided to turn my focus at that time from the loss that I had and look up.
Wow.
And look to Christ. And ask myself now, what is the lesson in this? Because, I try to figure out all the lessons in the other storms, but this one, I don't understand how my child will live in heaven.
Yeah.
What is the lesson? But the biggest lesson is that even after you're done with another storm, another one comes. Because God is in that process of making you. And I'm not saying that I'm already done or this testimony is over, but it's still in the making. Now, we sat down with my wife and went through the process of mourning and allowed God to give us the strength, because His word says His strength is made perfect in our weakness. In fact, even Paul, who walked with Jesus so strong, had his own weakness.
That's true.
That he kept praying that God would remove the thorn away from his flesh. But God answered him and told him just one thing, that my grace is sufficient for you, because my power is made perfect in your weakness. So we knew all these weaknesses, that God's strength will be made perfect in our life and being brought to that perfection.
Yeah.
And trusting God in that journey, I know that we will be having another testimony in future,
Very soon.
talking about another child
Yes.
that God will give us.
Wow.
Now we'll move from Genesis and have the next one, who is Exodus.
Wow, because it's the journey now.
Yeah, so that's my journey, but I thank God that I'm now healthy.
Wow.
I'm perfect.
How
I
is
can
mom?
eat everything. I'm no longer doing dialysis.
Yes.
The kidney is working perfect. Also thanking the doctors who God have used. I have a very good doctor in Nairobi Hospital called Kalida Soki, who is my nephrologist. And more grateful also to my mom for the ultimate sacrifice. You know, carrying somebody's part of their body, somebody's organ in you. And the scars that I have in my body all the time always remind me that God has placed my blessing in somebody else's body.
Wow.
That sometimes my life will depend on you. So how can I not love you? My understanding of loving a neighbor is much stronger. In fact, the Bible even talks about how can you say you love God and you can't love a neighbor that you see. And it will actually start in the family. That's the first neighbor. Your brothers, mothers, father, in-laws, then you move. That's the first demonstration of love.
Yeah.
Then now you can now prove that you love God.
Yes.
So all through that journey, I think God has been perfecting his love, not only to me, but my love to others.
Yeah.
And that can be undoubted. And you know, sometimes Beatrice, hearts speak to each other. And you would know a genuine person who is full of love.
You will.
And love is not said. It's demonstrated in action. Even Jesus demonstrated it in action. God demonstrates love in action. You can easily sense affect love because hearts speak and human beings are spiritual. So to be brought to a point where you understand love truly as it is and give it is not something that you learn somewhere in school or in just church. It is life experience. And sometimes God passes through us all these things to learn love. I don't carry any bitterness in my heart.
Wow.
There are people who cooked up stories. Some said I faked the disease. I wasn't sick at all because of how fast I rose up from the ashes.
Like a phoenix.
Like I got out of the transplant and immediately you are giving. You are making, you are helping people in the village. And all over, you've created a big foundation that has over 250 youths who are volunteers.
Wow.
Working day and night and ensuring that the few solutions that we can offer, we can be able to give. If candidates are sitting for exams, we look for those who are vulnerable. We give them geometry sets. We give them the tools to be able to succeed because education also formed part of me.
Yeah.
And many other programs that we do under our foundation.
Wow.
But I'd urge everybody to read the book. There's a lot of things that I've left
Here
out.
is the book here, and actually time is very much spent, but maybe you can just let people know, what do you hope they gain from reading this book, and where can they find it?
Thanks, Beatrice. The book is called A Perfect Storm. The Perfect Storm. And I think there's a statement before the book, the title of the book
Yeah.
that I've written that says there is no experience, good or bad, that goes to waste.
Yeah.
And I think basically that's what I want everybody to learn from the book, that if you are celebrating, you have a good experience now, it can't go to waste. It has its own lesson. It has to form you
Yeah.
to another phase of life. We keep rephasing. We keep metamorphosizing, is the word. I think we learned that the butterfly moves from the egg, larva, pupa, adult. And I think a human being to move into, I won't say perfection. There is no perfect human being, but to being refined, you go through experience,
Yeah.
both good and bad. And the same God that walks with you when you're eating bread, when you're eating a stone, He's still God.
Yeah.
He's still God when you have lost a loved one, when you have waited for a promised child and He takes him away. He's still God.
He's still God.
He's still good when you're wealthy and your bank account is full of money. And when you are down, being chased by auctioneers, and you've lost a job,
Yeah.
He's still good. He's still good when you're driving high-end, luxurious vehicles, and when you are having to use public means and the fare is not enough. He's still good.
Still God.
He's still good when you're living in the rich suburbs. And when you are having to be accommodated by somebody because you can't afford the rent, He's still good.
Still God.
And we are tempted to call Him God in good times, but rebuke Him in bad times. So acknowledge Him in good times and acknowledge the devil in bad times. But what I want readers to read in my story, not just the entire story, I have decided to be vulnerable and share.
Yeah.
Not everybody will share, because that's the purpose of everything. And I tell God that I've made my own promises with Him on how I live my next phases of life, no matter which storm comes my way, so that I can earn each day
Yeah.
by how well I live the current one. So I think the book is available. You can be able to call 011 000 0015 and order a copy, a personalized signed copy. That is 011 000 0015. Or they can go to Nuria Bookstore and they'll find The Perfect Storm.
Yeah.
It's the only book in that bookstore called The Perfect Storm. So if they go there and ask for The Perfect Storm,
They will get it.
they will get it.
Wow. This is powerful. And social media handles, how can people, keep up with the foundation and you as well?
Thank you. I'm available in all social medias as Athanas Mbele Mwachia. So Athanas Mbele is my name, and in all social media handles I'm available. And anybody, especially the ones who are going through kidney failure and chronic diseases, are the people I want to work with.
Yeah.
And if you have a loved one who is going through such a moment, I think the perfect gift you can give them is The Perfect Storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Just amazing. And as we conclude, I just want to read the bottom part. I think I love how you've put it. On your way to triumph, you will fall, but like a phoenix rising from the ashes, you shall rise again. I think that is my parting shot, but somehow I also bumped on this quote that allow me to read it. A bow and arrow is useless unless it is pulled back to create tension and pressure. The farther it's pulled back, the more powerful the arrow becomes when it hits the target. So powerful. Very, very powerful. And thank you so much, Mr. Mbele, for coming through and literally sharing your testimony with such orator skills. I don't know how to call it, but you're a great storyteller. And I'm really inspired. You know, anytime I'm told to sit in for a show, I always know God has something for me. And I believe that us having this conversation wasn't coincidental, but God has used you to speak to me. And I believe that wherever I go, I'll be able to share the gospel and continue with this message. That indeed, like a phoenix, we shall rise again. Problems are not to bring us down. That quiver is just being pulled back, but it will shoot even further.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming through. May God bless you and continue to use you in his vineyard
Thank you
as
very
he
much.
is.
A lot.
Yes.
Thanks.
Wow, this has been so good. I mean, I'm on top of the world. I think I need time to meditate, you know, on everything we have had a conversation on with Mr. Mbele right here. But I'm definitely sure that you too have been inspired. This is one of those interviews you want to share. This is one of those interviews you want to post on your status, send to groups, whoever, and you know, whoever you know that really needs this information, this testimony that we've been able to share today, please do not withhold it. Just share it and share it and share it over and over and over again until everybody gets to know this Jesus, this God who can literally give you beauty for ashes, give you those treasures in the dark places. This has been amazing. My name is Beatrice Watare. Wishing you an amazing evening, and God bless you so much for tuning in and also following through with the program, the part 1 and the part 2. If you didn't get to watch the part 1, kimbia pale YouTube. You'll be able to see it. Thank you. Kwaheri. See you next time.